Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers set forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, if you're familiar with history, you might recognize these powerful first lines to Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Delivered in the midst of the American Civil War in 1863, it's considered some of America's finest public oration. While I'm up here, I'm not going to try to compete with that, but I would like to take the opportunity to share with you a little bit about our 16th president. While I'm here, we'll go over Abe's life as a young man. We'll talk about his time as president during the Civil War, and we'll go over his legacy and the impact he's had on our nation today. Starting off, Lincoln was born in Kentucky, but quickly moved to Illinois as a child, where he would spend the rest of his childhood. Unfortunately for Lincoln, he had to start working early to help support his family, so he didn't have the time or the resources to get a proper formal education. But according to History.com, we know that he was still a very intelligent boy. And as a kid, he would stay up late at night reading books and generally just spend all of his time trying to learn as much as he could. As he grew, he found an interest in politics and in the law. And actually, in 1834, after years of diligently reading through old law textbooks and going over old courthouse cases, he was able to pass the bar exam and get a law license in Illinois. Just a couple years after, he found his first place in politics when he was elected to the Illinois State Legislature in 1834. Soon after, he would meet and marry his wife. This was obviously very happy for him, but their lives together were not easy. Just being the first couple during the American Civil War would be extremely difficult and stressing. But the pair also both suffered from chronic depression, which is something they battled with throughout their entire lives. They were followed closely by sadness, as only one of their 4 children would live to adulthood. But fighting through the highs and lows of his life, Lincoln was an extremely passionate man, and into his middle age, he continued to follow his political career. In 1846, he was elected to Congress, but while he was there, he was an unpopular congressman, and his opposition to the Mexican-American War and his general disdain for slavery kept him from being elected again. After this, he decided to take a break from politics, but it didn't take him long to get back into the game, and in 1856, he ran for Senate. Unfortunately, he didn't get elected, but he used the opportunity to establish himself in the political community, and through his eloquent speeches and his clear passion for politics, he established himself in the political community as a very respected man. And in 1860, he ran for president. And as we all know, he then served as president from 1860 until his unfortunate assassination in 1865. According to Tulane University, Abraham Lincoln is often considered America's very best president. During his time as president, he faced absolutely unprecedented challenges, as soon after his election, the country was thrown into a brutal civil war. The election of a fairly inexperienced politician to president was too much for some southern states, and tensions that had been rising for years finally boiled over as several southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. Hopes for a quick and easy war were shattered early on at the Battle of Bull Run, when the Union lost. Both sides then settled in for what would become a long and brutal conflict. Despite the brutality and the tragedy of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln and his appointed generals led the Union down a decisive trail to victory. And in early 1865, the last major Confederate army surrendered to Union forces in a small Virginia courthouse. Now, obviously, people all over the country were overjoyed to see the end of the war. But they would go on to feel the effects of this terrible war for years to come, generations to come even, with over 520,000 American dead, without even mentioning the many more injured and sick, or the extensive damage done to southern infrastructure with whole towns and farms burned down. It's safe to say that the damage done to America during the Civil War was something like we'd never seen before. Some people say that the saddest part of Lincoln's career is that he didn't get to see the country that he worked so hard to protect and bring back together truly recover after the war. On April 14th, 1865, Lincoln was shot in the back of the head while attending a play with his wife. He would die the next morning. Now, As is explained in the excellent article by Professor Burlingham, in many ways, Lincoln can be credited with the very existence of our nation as we know it today. Without him, who knows what could have happened of the Southern succession? Without his excellent leadership and his willingness to step up and do what needed to be done, anything could have happened. He had to make some unprecedented moves, which made him unpopular with the public. But at the end of the day, we can all thank Lincoln for the existence of our nation. Now, as impressive as it is, literally holding the Union together himself, that isn't Lincoln's only impact on society today. Another great impact Lincoln's had started with the Emancipation Proclamation. In 1863, a preliminary version of the Emancipation Proclamation was passed, and it was a huge step towards the death of slavery. In many ways, the proclamation was limited, but it's undoubtedly a major step towards freedom for all in America. And it laid the groundwork for the 13th Amendment, which after it was ratified, immediately freed over 100,000 slaves. While he was underappreciated in his time, looking back, it's safe to say that Abraham Lincoln stands towards the top of the list of most influential people in the history of our nation. And we can see that he made an incredible impact, both in his time and long after. Before I get out of here today, I'd like to take a quick recap of what we talked about. We started off looking at his biography, his past, and his road to success. Then we delved into the Civil War and how he handled the country. Finally, we took a look at Lincoln's great legacy and all the ways he's impacted our nation today. Thank you all for joining me to take a quick look at one of America's greatest presidents. And I hope that we all leave with a little bit of a better understanding of the man whose statue we see in the Commons every day. Thank you.